Luke Werkela, a responsibly armed American defending himself and his family, was forced to shoot his attacker. He was charged with murder and spent 8 years in prison on a wrongful conviction. This is his story on how he navigated the legal system and the lessons he learned along the way. And a quick reminder, we have a gun giveaway going on right now. You can enter for free, but it ends soon. Just click the link in the description below to reveal which brand new gun you could win. Now, let's watch Luke's story.
I mean, I was expecting to go home that night. You're under arrest for murder.
The police were called to respond to a shooting on the west side. 2 men, heavily intoxicated, got into a physical altercation, and 1 man had shot the other in self-defense. Reporting live from Bend, Oregon.
Probably the smartest thing to do in a situation like that is to just say nothing to the police and just ask for a lawyer immediately. Basically, Detective Ney and I got into an argument, a verbal argument. I'd been getting along pretty well with these other 2 officers, but just right away, he had kind of an attitude, and as soon as he started like asking me questions that I knew he already knew the answers to. Like, okay, the guy's spent the last hour plus getting information. It made me feel like I should have an attorney present. At my trial, my first trial, this argument was played for the jury multiple times to show them that I'm like an aggressive person. You know, I was never afforded the opportunity to post bail. I was held without bail. I mean, they photographed me. I had these claw marks on my throat from where the guy tried to strangle me. And, you know, later my DNA is found under his fingernails. It's like, okay, they're gonna see this and that's gonna be it. But I mean, as it ended up, you know, the prosecutors and the police, they just came up with this crazy fantasy and told so many lies at that trial. It was pretty sickening. So that was the backbone of their whole case last time. And just destroying my credibility, character assassination. At some point, one of my attorneys goes to Mary Anderson and he's like, look, why are you still charging my client with murder? You've seen the evidence here. You know this, I mean, this is a self-defense case. Worst case scenario, you can't call it anything worse than manslaughter. And her response was, oh, well, your client didn't want to talk to us. So in other words, oh, I agree, but we're going to keep prosecuting him out of spite. One of the worst being from Mary Anderson, who was one of my original prosecutors. She, in her closing argument, she gets up in front of the jury and she starts talking about these claw marks, and she's like, she suggested to them that I self-inflicted those wounds. And the messed up thing is, they referred to me as a storyteller no less than 50 times just in their closing arguments, based on the fact that I have this background as a writer, a journalist. Oh, he makes up stories for a living. And you can't believe anything he says.
What was the one thing you missed the most during that 8 years?
My wife. Then all this happened, and you know, through the course of my incarceration, you know, my marriage didn't survive it, and you know, for me, it was very heartbreaking, and I mean, personally, one of the biggest tragedies of this whole experience, because she's the woman that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. So to lose that, I mean, it's, you know, I'm still not over it. This bail hearing, the presiding judge, Ashby, in Deschutes County, he contacts my attorneys, and I met with him a couple times. A nice guy, but he was like basically trying to talk them into convincing me to take the deal for 9.5. He's like, you know, I don't want to see him, you know, ending up back in prison doing life again. You know, his parents are getting older, and you know, I know this was just a one-off event. I know that he's not a threat to the public. I know he's not a flight risk. Like, wow, really? And again, this is 2 weeks after they denied me bail. I mean, the only reason for holding someone without bail is because you think they're a danger to the public or a flight risk. Well, here's the presiding judge saying explicitly that I'm not. And not only that, he also said if your client signs this deal, I'll let him out tomorrow on an ankle monitor, and he can go take care of whatever he needs to for a couple months before going and doing his last year and a half in prison. Then it wasn't easy because, again, I've got a life sentence potentially hanging over my head. I know that if I go to trial and lose, I can be back in that scenario. So it's a scary thing. But I just, a long time ago, I made the decision that, or I made the choice that I wasn't going to make that type of decision based in fear. I was going to make it based on principle. And yeah, that moment when you're standing there waiting for the jury to announce their verdict, I mean, pretty nerve-wracking, and just where I had to get myself to be able to be in that moment. You know, just, again, having to be able to handle them saying guilty if that's what happens. You know, it takes a lot of mental footwork just to get yourself in that space. So it was very intense. This time, it wasn't just murder. I was charged with murder, man 1 and man 2. Those were the lesser included. So he went down the line, you know, on the charge of murder, not guilty. On the charge of manslaughter 1, not guilty. Manslaughter 2, not guilty. And, you know, he had the jurors do like a show of hands, and then after that, the judge is like, Mr. Werkele, you're free to go. So that was a pretty powerful moment. Hi, my name is Luke Werkele, and I spent 8 years in prison on a wrongful conviction.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Hopefully this video got you thinking about the aftermath of a self-defense shooting and what you may be up against. And a quick reminder, we have a gun giveaway going on that ends soon. All you have to do is click on the link below and reveal which brand new gun you can win. I'm Kevin Michalowski, Director of Content for the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to this channel, comment down below, and share this video, because YouTube is actively suppressing firearms videos, and we need your help to defeat the algorithm and push gun videos out to more people. Stay safe. We'll see you in the next video.